presser. My name is Grace Choi. I'm one of the many organizers here from Georgia versus Swanee. I just want to make sure all of our electeds are ready to go. So can we have all of our state reps on both sides of me? And I need Long Tran over here, and then Sam Park. And then all the Asian members of Congress, can you please also gather to the right or left, because we'll be coming up one by one, speaking for 2 minutes each. And then we need Brad Jenkins and Daniel Kim and Benjamin also on the side. Okay, are all the media folks ready? Victoria? Yes. Yes. Okay, they're ready to go. Great. Okay. Well, welcome everyone. We're all here for Senator Warnock's 5th election. This is his 2nd runoff, and we're excited and mobilized here in Georgia. We have our illustrious community leaders here up on the stage. Let's give it up for our community leaders. I'm just moderating the flow. My name is Grace Choi. From Lawrence Swanee State Representative Sam Park District. Just so you know, he is the highest ranking Democratic Asian person in the Georgia legislature. He is the Democratic whip in the State House, and he just rallied all the votes last week. Let's give it up to Sam Park. Well, I'm going to first turn it over to State Representative Long Tran. He's a good friend of mine. We both worked on Stacey Abrams' campaign in 2018. Stacey! I served as her API Outreach Director. Long Tran was an amazing volunteer back then, and now he is our State Representative-elect representing this district of Chamblee, Georgia. So let's give it up for Long Tran.
Thank you, Grace. Good afternoon, everyone. I am your next Georgia State Representative of House District 80. It's pretty exciting. But, you know, if you've been paying attention to this race, you hear Reverend Raphael Warnock talk about get up, get ready, and put your shoes on. And we're seeing that. Our community, along with the Hispanic community here in this district, got up this morning, put our shoes on, and they're out knocking on the doors. We're working hard to get Reverend Raphael Warnock elected. And this is crucial. As someone who is of Asian American descent with an 80-year-old father, I can tell you things like capping insulin prices when my 80-year-old dad is a diabetic. It's crucial to our family. It's crucial to our family's finances. It's crucial to the health care of our family. And so we have to get out there and re-elect Reverend Raphael Warnock.
Thank you, State Rep-elect Long Tran. Now we have Sam Park, who I already introduced, but he's entering his 4th legislative term. He got elected in 2016 by, how many votes was it, Sam? 400 votes. So this is how you know every vote really counts. And this is a very, very tight runoff. So I'm going to turn it over to our Democratic whip, State Representative Sam Park.
So it is an honor to be here. Thank you to all the members of Congress. Thank you to all of the supporters who've come down to Georgia to turn out the vote and to support Georgia Asian American voters to continue to build political power and make history. In 2020, by the power of the vote, Georgia Asian American voters changed the course of history by electing President Joe Biden and U.S. Senators Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff, and we are ready to do it again. The final stretch. I know we're all excited. Thank you again so much for lending your voice, lending your energy, lending your spirit. Let's continue the hard work and get Senator Warnock reelected for another 6 years. So with that, it is my honor to now introduce a dear friend and an amazing leader who's come to Georgia many, many times to support our community, to support Asian American voters here in the state of Georgia, Congresswoman Grace Meng.
Thank you so much to State Representative Sam Park and to State Representative-elect Long Tran.
for having us here today, and thank you so much to all of our amazing community leaders, and especially to members of our media for covering this important election. My name is Grace, and I'm here from Queens, New York. Usually there's more love from Brooklyn. Awesome. I love the people of Georgia. I just gotta tell you, like Sam said, I think I've been to Georgia almost every single year since 2017. And when I first came in 2017, and I actually brought my whole family because we came on my wedding anniversary. And this was the election to help John Ossoff get elected to the House. Now, think about those days. We were not successful in that election. And at that time, Sam Park was the only Asian American in the entire state legislature here in Georgia. This was just 5 years ago. So I came here, of course, to help get out the vote for Senator Warnock. But I also came here to say thank you to our AAPI families, to our community members, and to our voters. Look at the tremendous progress that you have all made in helping turn Georgia bluer and bluer every single year. And now, since the 2017 time that I had been here, not only is Sam not alone in the state legislature anymore, Georgia has the highest number of Asian state reps out of any state in the country. That doesn't happen by accident. That happens because all of you have worked very, very hard. And because of your efforts, we have been able to change and improve policies and legislation that directly go towards helping our Asian communities here in Georgia and across the country. You literally helped elect Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to the White House. Good job, Georgia. You brought us 2 Democratic senators. But of course, as always, we know that Georgians can do more. And we are once again asking Georgians to step up to please remember to vote by December 6th. This is incredibly important. There are literally human lives. There are lives at stake in this election. Like Long mentioned about the cost of insulin. There are literally people who have to choose between buying prescription drugs that they need, life-saving drugs, and buying groceries. And leaders like Senator Warnock has made it possible for families to be able to afford these prescription drugs. And if we want to tackle issues that affect our communities, from combating AAPI discrimination, no administration in recent history has done more than the Biden-Harris administration. And a few years ago, when the Atlanta shootings happened, our KPAC chairwoman, Judy Chu, led a delegation. Many of us were here at that time. We held hands with many of the families here. We cried with you. And we pledged that we would continue to come back and we would work with you to make sure that we were doing everything we can to make sure that our policies and our government is accessible for all Americans, including our AAPI community. So I just wanted to be here to say thank you to Georgia. Once again, please do everything you can to get out the vote. This is such a crucial election. And thank you so much for all the great work that you do.
Great thing. The other thing to note for the media is that this is a joint Asian American Pacific Islander Weekend of Action for Aspire PAC, which is the political arm of the Congressional Asian Pacific American Caucus, and also API Victory Flag. So you'll hear from both leaders, but Congresswoman Grace Ming is the chair. She heads up Aspire PAC, so just wanted to also share that. We're also going to bring up Congresswoman Judy Chu from California. She's the first Chinese American woman ever elected to Congress. And she is also the chair of the Congressional Asian Pacific American Caucus in Congress.
I'm Congressmember Judy Chu, chair of the Congressional Asian Pacific American Caucus, and I came all the way from Los Angeles to join you in making sure that we re-elect Raphael Warnock to the U.S. Senate. And you can tell how important this race is by the fact that 6 Asian members of Congress have come here to make sure that we are victorious in this race. And I in particular had to come because in 2018, I was invited to come to help in that race. And I was just so impressed by the vibrant AAPI community. I could see its power and its potential, and I could see its growing influence in each of the big races that are affecting our national scene. And there is so much at stake in our country. Of course, there's AAPI hate. We've been suffering under 2.5 years of that. You know very well because of what happened at the Georgia spas, where this young man filled with hate deliberately went to the Asian spas to kill Asian women. And in fact, this shocked the nation. This is why we were able to get Grace Meng's COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act passed. But I must tell you, it was Raphael Warnock that made sure the names of the 8 victims of those Georgia killings were put into the legislation. And I thank him for that. And I thank him for standing up for lowering the cost of prescription drugs and making sure that AAPI small businesses are protected, and every other thing that we must do to push this nation forward. So I am also here because I know the power and potential of the AAPI vote. You know, I've seen this vote double from 2016 to 2020, and already we see that those who are voting, those AAPIs who are voting overwhelmingly for Warnock. So what we need to do is make sure that we get out the vote. This is going to be such a close election. Every vote will count. But I tell you, you know what the secret weapon is? It is the AAPI vote. So let's make sure we get every vote that we can out by Tuesday, and that we are the margin of victory. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Congressman Judy Chu. Next, we have Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal from Washington State. Thank you so much. She's also the chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. So, Congresswoman Jayapal, over to you.
Thank you so much, everybody. It is so great to be with you from Seattle, Washington. And proud to stand before you as the first South Asian American woman in the United States. And let me tell you 3 things. One, I was here 10 years ago in Georgia with an immigrant rights organization that I started, meeting with then Senate Minority Leader Stacey Abrams about how we build Black, Brown, indigenous power across Georgia, and she had this amazing plan for that with so many of the leaders here. And I've been coming back to Georgia ever since. I was here a couple times before the general election in November, and I am just so grateful to all of you. Really, it's the work of everyday door knocking, advocacy, community leadership, not the work of flying in for a weekend and being here to canvass, but actually the work of building that movement. And you in Georgia have been doing that. Second thing, I am seeing all the amazing AAPI leaders in the state Senate to help Sam Clark. So here's the thing, when we represent something else, all of us, it's not about the fact that just policy gets better when our voices are at the table. It's also the fact that people can see their own futures differently, right? Because of all of these people that are in the legislature, people see the opportunity for themselves and then they run. And that's why in Washington State, after I ran, we now have 5 South Asian American women in the state legislature, because that is what part of what we're doing is changing what representation means. Third thing, this election, I was just told by some people who have been door knocking that they really wanted me to say this, you cannot vote online. You cannot vote before Tuesday. You have to vote on Tuesday in person. And for a lot of our communities, people don't always know how you actually go through that. So you, in the ethnic media, are going to be so important to get out that message of what it means. And then I know I said 3, but the very last thing I want to say is everyone's talked about Raphael Warnock and everything that he's done. I also want you to know that he has really helped. I passed a resolution with all of our members here to shut down the Irwin Detention Center. He has been on the front lines of immigration, of fighting for human rights for all immigrants. He believes in the dignity of every human being. We need to get Raphael Warnock back to the Senate. Thank you so much, President.
Now we have Congressmember Mark Takano from California. He's a former public school teacher. He's also the chair of the Veterans Affairs Committee, which is a huge deal to have an API chairing one of the committees. So over to you, Congressman.
I'm also the first engagement in company.
Yeah!
And I have to say, I've got a buddy here. Look, let me take you back to a time, a dark time, when AAPIs had no representation. In 1941, when my family was interned in internment camps. My mother and father were grandparents, but I also have 3 uncles that fought in a segregated fighting unit called the 442nd. And one of those uncles died a few weeks short of VE Day. Another part of that story that many of you might be not familiar with, is that the 442nd was commanded in part by a very, very beloved commander who finished his career as a colonel, Colonel Young O. Kim, who was a Korean American. Imagine that, a Korean American commanding a segregated fighting of Japanese Americans. People who, the story was during the time of World War II, Korea was occupied brutally by the Japanese. But here in America, there's a different story emerging of Asian immigrants not being beholden to their past, not being beholden to the weight of their history, but forming and fighting for a country that was about equality before the law, was about freedom. And that's what I believe that my uncle died for, although he could not have imagined that he would lay the groundwork for Sam and me to become elected Asian Americans, but not just elected Asian Americans, elected gay Asian Americans. Can you imagine that? Freedom keeps expanding. And what you need to ask yourself in this election, all Asian Americans need to ask themselves in this election, will you be on the side of a more perfect union, more freedom, more equality, or will you be the unwitting tool of going back? I submit to you, that is the choice that we have before us. And that as Asian Americans, you have done an amazing job here in the state of Georgia. You have elected more AAPIs into the state legislature than we have in California. That is amazing. Give yourself a hand for that. The saying goes that we will only go as progressively as far as the American South will allow us. But I say here in Georgia and Atlanta that you are leading the way and you are blazing the path forward for all of us here. Thank you so much. Please send Raphael Warnock back to the U.S. Senate. I'm proud as the chairman of the Veterans Affairs Committee to have been his partner in passing his first bill into law, which was a law examining disparities and inequality among our veterans. And you know, our veterans that returned from World War II, they face different challenges depending on which ethnicity they were. If you were a minority or a black person, you could not get that home loan. You could not go to any university of your choice on the GI Bill. And there were consequences to that. We have now a moment to be able to reckon with our past and to reconcile. But first we must reckon. I'm so proud that Senator Raphael Warnock pushed through legislation that is the beginning of that reconciliation. Thank you very much. Raphael Warnock.
member. We now have Congressmember Raja Krishnamurthy. He's from Illinois, which is pretty incredible. He flew quite a ways away. He is also on the House Oversight Committee and is the chair of the Oversight Subcommittee on Economic Consumer Policy. Basically does important stuff and keeps people in check. And he serves as the assistant whip, which basically means he's a leader in that capacity as well. So let's bring it up for Raja Krishnamurthy.
Hi, everybody. I'm Congressman Raja Krishnamurthy. I'm the warm-up act for Daniel Day Kim. When we were on the bus, they said, first we're going to have the members of Congress speak, and then we're going to have the talent. And so I know exactly which category I'm in. But look, I want to observe those 3 rules of public speaking: be short, be sweet, and be gone. So 3 points. First, give a big round of applause to AAPI Victory Fund. This is an amazing event that they put together, and tonight is going to be an even bigger rally. The first time we've ever had a rally from the Asian American community for any U.S. Senate candidate in America. Can you believe that? Second point, I want to give a big round of applause to all the people standing behind me and everyone else who've been lighting it up on social media. They've been making phone calls, and they've been knocking on doors, or as I say, they've been war knocking. They've been door knocking and war knocking. Am I right about that? And we are going to win this race because people like them and others are getting on the ground, talking to family and friends, and making sure everyone votes for the Reverend Senator. Am I right about that? Third and final point. Look, we're Asian Americans. We're good at math. We know how to count. And we're going to be making sure that we count the votes.
Yes.
Believe it or not, in 2016, there were 70,000 roughly Asian Americans who turned out and voted. In 2020, it was 134,000. So the difference is 64,000 votes. That's 5 times the margin that Joe Biden won by in the state of Georgia. So Asian Americans elected Joe Biden to the United States presidency. Are you with me? And so now we are going to be the difference makers in this particular race for the Reverend Senator. And this is how it's going to happen. We're going to knock on doors, we're going to make phone calls, we're going to go on social media, and we're going to do things like this. Daisies for Warnock. Join to 52005. Now, Daisies is an affectionate term for South Asian Americans. Pramila and I are 2 of the 5 members of Congress. I affectionately call us the Samosa Caucus. Yes. We need the samosas, we need the pakoras, we need the idlis, we need all Asian Americans to turn out and vote for the Reverend Senator. Am I right about that? Yeah. It's AAPI power that's going to put the Reverend Senator back in the U.S. Senate. Now let me close with my favorite saying, which is yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, but today is a gift. That's why we call it the present. And so I'm honored and blessed to be with you and all these wonderful AAPI leaders to make sure that Georgia selects the right person for the U.S. Senate, because I've got Warnock on my mind. How about you guys?
Thank you so much. And last but not least, on our Aspire PAC delegation is Congresswoman Marilyn Strickland. She actually has strong ties here in Georgia as well, which I'm sure she'll speak to, but she was the 38th mayor of Tacoma, and now she is the first member of Congress who's both Korean and African American. And she's the first African American member ever elected to Washington State, which is incredible. And if you saw last year on January 3rd, she wore the Korean hanbok on the day that she swore in. So she's a very proud Korean woman. She's the first Korean American woman Democrat in Congress too. So let's give it up for Marilyn Strickland.
Well, thank you very much. It is my honor to be here today. As the last speaker, I want to make a few points, but let you all know, my roots in Georgia run deep. My father was born in Newton, Georgia, and as a young African-American man, he joined the U.S. Army. That was segregated at the time. When President Truman desegregated it, my father had a chance to go to Korea, where he was stationed, where he met my mother. So I was born in Seoul. So as mentioned earlier, I'm half black, half Korean. I tell people that I am a proud African-American woman, and I will always be a daughter of Korea. With that said, we are here today for Reverend Warnock. We want to vote for him again to make sure that he wins. AAPIs represent the fastest growing group of voters in America. When we show up, we win. When we show up, we are the difference between winning and losing. So we're here today to make sure that we are knocking on doors, sending text messages. The Spider Pack actually printed a door knocker in Korean for Reverend Warnock. So we're being very sensitive to the various languages. So let's get out there, let's do the work. There are only a few days left. Reverend Warnock is an asset. Reverend Warnock is going to make up the difference of the majority in the U.S. Senate to make sure that the Republican majority does not do bad things. Our democracy depends on this, our freedom depends on this, our history depends on this. And I will finally end by saying this. I am so incredibly proud that the underdog Korean soccer team beat Portugal yesterday. That we are doing the work that we have to do. This race is ours to lose. Let's make sure that we give Reverend Warnock a healthy margin, and let's make sure that we're getting out there to our AAPI community to make sure that we show up and that we are in fact the margin of victory. Thank you.
Our presser now transitions to the API Victory Fund. Really excited to introduce the chair of the API Victory Fund, Shekhar. He founded it 6 years ago in 2015. Really disheartened after, especially after the former our president got into office. And so he has been mobilizing APIs across the country through API Victory Fund. So over to Shekhar.
Hello, Georgia. I just want you to know, everywhere we have gone, we have seen folks who have been busting their tails. This is the sixth time that Reverend Warnock is on the ballot. The fifth time you're going to vote for him. Obviously, you must like him, because you're electing him. And he is the moral voice of the United States Senate. So, simply put, we're here to help you, support you, do whatever we can, because you're doing the work. Georgia will prove to the nation that you can build a strong and sustainable multiracial coalition that elects Democrats up and down the ticket. So we're going to be back here, and we're going to continue to congratulate you, help you, support you, make sure this continues. But in the meantime, we've just got a few days to go. Tonight we're doing, as Congressman Raja Krishnamoorthy said, the first ever sponsored by a major candidate, AAPI-centric rally. And that's why there are 6 members of Congress here from the KPAC. That's why Senator Ossoff's going to be there. That's why Daniel Day Kim, Min Jin Lee, Ari Afsar, Molly Kawahara, MC Chin are going to be here. So everybody is coming with one singular purpose. How do we get AAPIs? Young, old, Korean, Vietnamese, Filipino, Chinese, Indian, Pakistani, Bangladeshi, Nepali. Did I forget anybody? I'm sure I did. In all 38 countries that are represented in Georgia, who are holding hands for one purpose, and that is to repudiate the evil that is coming from the other side. Let's be very clear about this. This is about morality and character, and there's only one person in this race who represents character integrity, and the future for us. So please do whatever you have to do, because we're going to go, and by the way, tomorrow we're going to 6 different places of worship. Because we also need to pray. We need to pray for the blessing that Reverend Warnock can bring us. We need to pray for the blessings of this country that welcomed us. So let's do this together, and let's prove again, Georgia, win it for us. We're here for you.
Thank you, Kishore. And you just heard from our illustrious lineup of legislative talent. And so now we're going to send it over to our artistic talent. And the first in that lineup is no other than Daniel Day Kim, who is hailing from Hawaii, I believe, and represents all their artistic talent for the ages. Okay, Daniel Day Kim, over to you.
Hi everybody. You guys. That's actually a great way to start what I have to say. I'm not going to speak long, but I will say, I do love you guys. I love everyone on the stage because you are the ones who are doing the hard work. You're the ones knocking on doors. You're the ones who are doing this professionally. I am merely a concerned citizen and a supporter. And so I just want to start.
Right against your mouth.
I'm not used to working with microphones. That's not really what I do for a living. What I was saying was, I appreciate all of you because you are the ones doing all of the hard work. You're the ones encouraging us all to do better. You're the ones flying in from all over the country, enacting legislation, speaking so eloquently about this issue. I am a concerned citizen. I am a supporter. I am here to amplify the work that you all do. So I'm grateful to you all. Now, each of the speakers here is much more eloquent than I am, so there's nothing that I can say that would top what they have to say. They said it all. But what I can add is just a little bit of statistics, a little bit of color commentary to what they're saying. There was a study done recently by Asian Americans Advancing Justice called The Future of Voting, and it analyzed voting trends here in Georgia in 2020. And there are a couple of figures that stood out to me. I've actually learned a lot today. 486,000 Asian Americans in Georgia. 196,000 registered voters in Georgia. 52% of Georgians turned out, let me put it another way. There has been a 52% increase in turnout in 10 years among Asian Americans in Georgia, and 45,000 Asian Americans voted for the first time in 2020. These are important figures because it speaks to the work that you all are doing. And I'm grateful as a citizen that you're doing the work because that's why these numbers are changing. The last thing I want to say is that there's a lot of media here today, and it's good to know that we're speaking to the press and people beyond just this room. Because I'd like to say that if you have an uncle, if you're watching this or reading this article, and you have an uncle or a grandfather or a mother or a daughter or an auntie, anyone who's related to you that has never voted but is reading this newspaper or is watching this piece, please encourage them to get out and vote for the first time. Let's make that number, that 45,000 plus number, even greater, because that, as everyone has said so well, is the margin of victory. So thank you very much, everyone. Go Raphael Warnock. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we have Molly Kawahata, who is a climate activist, and she used to work in the White House. We're going to have Molly just quick. Is Molly here? Oh, Molly. Quickly introduce yourself and mobilize the young people. I
am so excited to be here with you all. My name is Molly Kawahata. I'm a climate advocate, a former climate advisor to the Obama White House, and the subject of a new Patagonia film called The Scale of Hope. And this year, we should all be super excited because we saw the most sweeping climate action in history thanks to these people, which was the Inflation Reduction Act that Senator Warnock also championed in the Senate alongside his work to cut the price of prescription drugs in America. Now, let's take a step back from that, because a lot of people celebrate that that happened, but aren't thinking about how it happened or why it happened. And 2 years ago, what happened here in Georgia was extraordinary. Organizers on the ground, all of you, registered people at historic rates, turned out voters at historic rates, and because of your work and the AAPI community stepping into its power, you did what nobody said could ever be done in flipping Georgia. And because of that, we have the makeup in Congress to get the Inflation Reduction Act passed. Meaning, the work of all of you in Georgia has led to the fact that future generations will live a better life. Their life will look better. Their quality of life will be improved. Your children, your grandchildren, future generations, because of the work you did 2 years ago. Today, this weekend, in the last few days, we are going to do it again. If you care about climate change, the number one thing we can do is re-elect Senator Warnock to the Senate. Thank you.
Thank you, Molly. I'm fired up and ready to go. All right, we have Ari Alsart here next. She is from the famous musical Hamilton. You heard of that? Hamilton, about our democracy. And she is here in Georgia from Montana. Is that right? From Montana. Sorry, I got this. I'm so sorry. She's in California. So welcome, Ari Alsart.
I'm going to keep it short and sweet. I just want to say thank you so much. As she said, I was in Hamilton. I opened the original production in Chicago as Eliza, and I got to talk about what our democracy was every single day. Every single day, and using art. Because I believe, and I say this a lot, I think that art changes culture and culture changes policy. And the only way that we're going to be able to do that is us working together. And so I am grateful for all of the work that y'all are doing. I am grateful for all of the work that y'all are doing, because that's the only way, and I think that's the responsibility of artists. And when I think about democracy, and when I think about access and equitable access to the voting rights, that is Warnock. And he is fighting for it every single day. And so I know all of us believe in that, and all of us are going to get out, get our aunties, get our uncles, get all of our friends and our families out to vote. So thank you.
Last but not least is one of my favorite Korean American authors, Min Lee, who wrote Pachinko, historical fiction everyone should read about Japanese occupation in Korea, the Korean War. And she is just a badass lady from New York, where I live right now. And so we're so excited that she flew here from New York as well, joining this artistic delegation. Over to Min Lee, please.
Good afternoon. When I was 20 years old, I made cold calls to Asian Americans in Washington, D.C. and Virginia who were Asian American voters for the Clinton Gore campaign. And when I did, very often I would get people from Vietnamese, Korean, South Asian families, and very often they would refuse to tell me who they would vote for. And the more I learned about this, they refused to tell me because they had come from countries in which it was unsafe to tell you who they were leaning towards. Right now, around the world, we are seeing a rise of authoritarianism and persecution of human rights, in which votes don't matter anymore. When you approach all the voters as you go out there, I hope that you realize that this is what's going on, the psychology of Asian American voters. That they come from nations in which they are afraid of being imprisoned, being persecuted, and being fired for what they believe and who they vote for. Right now, little girls in Iran are standing up to authoritarianism. Right now in China, students are protesting against authoritarian regimes. Right now, all across America, we are having brave young people fight against lies and fascism and repression. I really hope that you will go out there knowing that our votes are sacred, our democracy is so deeply important to all of us, and I want to thank each and every one of you for making the vote matter and for protecting the soul of America. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minjin. And just before we conclude our presser, just want to make sure we recognize Nabila Islam. She's the new senator-elect. She's the first South Asian woman in the state senate and Muslim American in the state woman state senator. So Nabila, thank you so much for being here. And that's it, folks. We're going to do media policides. If anyone wants to have any media interviews with our legislative or our artistic talents, please stand over there and you can interview them over there. Thank you.
So the AAPI community represents the fastest growing group of voters in the United States. So when we show up and when we flex our power, we can determine the outcomes of elections, who wins and who loses. So that's why we're here today, to make sure that people know that this election in Georgia is so vitally important to the future of democracy, and also making sure that we turn out.
Thank you.
Thank you.